us, right?
She told Russell to meet us here.
Oh! It's pretty stable there.
I imagine if you could do this, you could do maybe the ocean better.
Oh, here comes a...
All right.
Oh, can he get back in? Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. We're in beautiful Lone Tree today, just over here by the Bridge to Nowhere. It's currently at about $7 million and running. They've been building the other end. It's the ramp on the other side. This is one of those fantasy projects. I guess what they're hoping is to connect those houses over there with these restaurants over here and this grocery store. But these people don't walk, man. I'm skeptical. It's a funny thing about the way government money gets spent, huh? Yeah. So, Rebecca and myself jetted down to Salida, Pueblo area over the weekend, Colorado Springs. It was awesome. They had a wonderful chalk art festival that was going on in Salida, and they had the street blocked off, and each block had like some artists, and then on one end they had like a little kids area where the kids had just had the opportunity to kind of go for it and just do some drawing, and it was fun. And there was some really good chalk art going on there. There was some very interesting artists making art there, and some of it was, you know, and art's subjective, right? But some of it was very, very, very good, like real talent.
I love it.
I saw some interesting techniques. I saw, you know, people using paint brushes to paint the chalk around on the ground once they had laid it down with, you know, like with the stick. I saw people rubbing with their fingers, sort of blending. I saw people using a squirt bottle to get like better saturation, better adherence. What else was cool? One of the things that I really liked about some of the art that was being produced were choice of color palette was very cool. Like there was one that was like neon colors. It was like a octopus kind of thing. Octopuses and were sort of like a popular theme. So we had a wonderful time walking around and checking that out. It was great. We sat in the park for a while and just kind of watched the people, and a lot of folks brought their dogs, and it was just nice.
Okay.
We stopped into a beautiful little gallery and boutique called Eye Candy. A lovely lady named Nikki, who is the purveyor of all those wares in that place. She asked us if we would like a glass of cold water. It was hot. How are you going to turn that down, right? Had some wonderful conversation with her. Her store is great in that it features a lot of local artists to that area. Kind of divided into little sections, and there's some really interesting art in there. So we had a wonderful time checking out Eye Candy in Salida. That was great. Yeah. What else? Oh. I actually have copious notes. I know that my first one was the whole Iran thing. I feel like that's mostly a done deal in the sense of they fought for like 12 days. Now they're going to go back to their relative corners for a while and just sneer at each other, I guess. So Israel has full on returned back to doing it what it was doing previously. It seems like the whole Iran thing is winding down from a perspective of, is it going to stoke World War III? Nah. Unlikely. Yeah. So I feel kind of like I was ahead of the curve on that one, maybe. Unless they do something wild. I will say this. A fatwa was issued, right? Basically a declaration. It's almost like when a gang orders a hit on somebody. That's kind of like a fatwa, right? It's kind of something like that, right? Like it's basically green lighting all their people to go ahead and do stuff. So as Americans, we still need to be vigilant. That should, well, and technically we should always be vigilant, but there was a gigantic funeral held for all the people that got killed on the military and stuff like that. And I think that they really were struck a death blow to the head from the snake's head controls the snake's body sort of perspective, right? I think that the military there is sort of in shambles. I think that it's too soon to really know if we obliterated. They keep using this word obliterated, which to me, that is a little bit psyopy. When the language across the spectrum coming out of all the different holes is the same and they're using this word obliterated, that is a sign of somebody trying to do narrative control, right? Unified language where you're trying to repeat the same terms into somebody's head so that, strangely, they will become the talking points in their future conversations. But the news stories are basically trying to plant keywords into your mind so that those keywords will begin to grow little seeds about narratives in your brain. And then they sort of cultivate and tend that shit as it grows. And really, framing and narrative control is all the media is technically about at this point. They don't have control over it. They're just shaping it. And one of their favorite tactics is to discredit any source that isn't them or act like they're the only ones that have any real credibility when in fact they don't. That's probably the most hilarious part about it. They don't have any credibility. But they try and come at it from the perspective of a psychological operation where always pretend to have that upper hand, always pretend that you are the source of expertise and that nobody else is qualified and that it's too complicated for regular people to understand. That's a big one. They should not be trusted. That's what I'm going to say about that. In my next one, I saw a very interesting interview that came off of the BBC with this character named Zizek. His last name is Zizek. He's kind of like a philosophical thought guy, and he's a leftist, to be certain, but I thought that he had interesting intellectual arguments, right? So I had watched this video where he's having this conversation with a BBC interviewer. And little did I know that this guy was going to end up talking like Sylvester the cat. And one nugget that came away from it was, he said that the Democrat Party was a lot like a group of hikers who had gone up through the forest, and then they got all the way up there and they found themselves at the edge of a gigantic chasm with a cliff, and that there was nowhere else to go. The only place to go was to turn around and walk back down the mountain, back to where you started, back to where you could go in a different direction, and set off in a new direction. And I thought, actually, that's spot on. He was saying for the Democrat Party to regain trust, regain followers, regain a real position of something that you can negotiate from. I think currently right now, there's a serious lack of leadership on the left. Their bench is really weak. None of them really stand for something. They all try to stand for ambiguity. They all try to stand for saying something but really meaning nothing, so that you never offend anybody, but you never really have any real positions or say anything either. And to me, I can't even understand how that works. It's mostly just like a lot of lofty talk and incompetence once they get in the roles, because they're basically PR people, not business people. Yeah. So I'll leave a link to that interview. I don't think everybody's going to like it, but I do think if you're kind of like one of these cerebral news nerd philosophical type people, I don't know, maybe you will. You're here with me now, right? So the potential is there that you might like it. You might enjoy it. I don't know. I'll leave a link to it. All right. Let's see. In my next note, me and Becky watched The Poop Cruise. It's on Netflix, but it's also available on BitChute. Somebody has posted it, and we watched that, and it's crazy because I remember when that happened, and I remember how wild the news cycle became about it. Like, and this story tells it about how Jeff Zucker, the guy that was running CNN at the time, was desperately trying to get people to watch CNN, and CNN is always starving for the next big story. The 24-hour news cycle became a real bastard in the sense of you always got to have that next story. You've always got to have the next news thing, and everything else is just repeating what you've already reported. And so they went all in on the boat, and it became the poop cruise, like, and the channel is 24/7 what's going on the poop cruise. It became the biggest story. And we did not know, I certainly didn't know at the time about what was going on with the accumulating feces and urine that was gathering in certain areas of the boat, namely like all the showers and stuff like this were being used as emergency restrooms. And when the boat began to list later on in the adventure, this stuff went all over the ship, all over the boat, right? Which of course is a gigantic biohazard, along with just being incredibly disgusting. In a way, it's an amazing tale of perseverance. It's an amazing tale of how people stuck at sea are just sort of forced to roll with it. It's like it's not really optional. If you have not watched The Poop Cruise, you should. It's an interesting documentary, especially if you like to go on cruises, because it does highlight some of the challenges that a cruise could face, some of the problems that could be in store for a cruise if it goes sideways, if it goes badly. So there was that, right? The Poop Cruise. In my next note, I was thinking about how in a digital world, like if we were to switch over to digital money, part of the beauty to this concept of digital money is that they can instantly turn off your ability to withdraw it, and that there is no place to withdraw your money to. There is no taking it out. It makes it really difficult to have a run on a bank in a digital world. They'll just stall everybody, not let them take it out. All you can really do is transfer it. You can't really have it or hold it. That's not how digital works. I recognize that there's advantages to digital. You don't need to take your wallet swimming. But at the same time, there's also disadvantages to it. And it is a manifestation of deeper control and further oversight over what people buy. You should be allowed to buy things and people don't know what the fuck it is. That should be your prerogative, right? Just saying. Founders believed in that. All right, my next note. I just want to say, rest in peace, Mikayla Raines, the gal from Save a Fox. It's a sad story right there. It's messed up that people got to be assholes and be trolls and bully people. It does highlight how, though, things that you say online affect people in real life. Something to think about. Wield that wisely, you know? Yeah. Rest in peace, Mikayla Raines. In my next note, perspective is everything. And only you see the things you see from your perspective. Only I see the things that I see from my perspective. And perhaps we are all consciousness, drawing from the same source, viewing it from different angles. But I suppose there's a purpose in that. From my perspective, I've seen how much corruption there is. I've seen how politicians, judges, people in public housing, people in HUD, people in the county, how they're all connected, how they all have conflicts of interest with each other, and how they've all created this amazing corporation for them, by them, for them, from you. They take your money and they give it to themselves, and they just rinse and repeat and do that over and over and over again. When you've got a district court judge who can greenlight you on anything and make sure that nothing that you do will be checked and that you'll never face any liability, how can they fail? They've created like the most bulletproof, insulated, crime family embezzlement scheme that you could possibly build. And one thing I know is, like, follow the money. If you follow the money, you'll see how it's all linked together. Big old crow landed right here. There he goes. Yeah. I've seen it. As we went through every single level looking for justice, you would run into yet another person connected to those people, looking out for them, protecting them, not following the rules, not following the laws, captured by those interests. You know, I had an interesting chat with ChatGPT about deconstructing Ukraine and the whole Ukraine thing through the lens of the Phoenix program. But when I had it do that, I realized that it's exactly identical to what they've done here in Colorado. Let me read it to you. If we deconstruct Ukraine through the lens of the Phoenix program based on operational model outlined by Douglas Valentine. Number 1, plausible deniability. All operations must be conducted in such a way that official responsibility is obscured. 2, narrative control. The target population must believe that the new regime or structure is organic and authentic. Number 3, use of native assets. Local figures must be elevated to maintain the illusion of independence. Number 4, systems penetration. Full spectrum infiltration of political, cultural, and security structures is essential. Number 5, psychological operations. Victory is psychological, not kinetic. Hearts and minds are the primary targets. And when I think about that in the context of what they've done here with public housing and the local community and HUD and the courts and all of the county administrators and the county commissioners, that's exactly what's happened. Is that they're all in on it together, and they're okay with that. And they don't have any other choice besides Maker Housing Partners, because they're housing 3,500 low-income families. They're married to each other now. And effectively, they let this company run amok, and nobody stops it. Nobody intervenes. Nobody cares. We've reported it to the Attorney General. We've reported it to the governor. We've reported it to the EPA. We reported it to the local police. We reported it to the county, HUD, everybody. Nobody cares. And this is why I have no faith in our court system here in Colorado, because I know how they're all linked together. I know how what they do is they operate to protect each other. They never want each other to look bad. They want to insulate themselves from scrutiny because they think they lose their legitimacy and authority when they get questioned, which is true. So I have witnessed that here in Colorado. That's my perspective. I'm trying to get that out to the world. And it's frustrating because I feel like the world doesn't care that the shit's corrupt. Nobody cares. And I have all the evidence to back it up too. I'm not just talking smack. I have all the receipts. It's frustrating. All right, party animals, I've talked entirely too long. Thanks for watching. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for being my people, all right? Please like, subscribe, share, and comment. Share. That really helps. If you don't want to comment, if you don't want to subscribe, share. Talk about it with somebody. Have a conversation. That'd be great, all right? Until we meet again on the next one, I do hope everybody's going to join me for that. This has been a Matt Metler production, copyright 2025.